I voted for Trump. I am saying that they are picking up law-abiding citizens. They're destroying families, jobs.
John Gannon is a 75-year-old businessman and lifelong Republican who supported President Trump in 2024.
I wouldn't do that again. Not after this fiasco.
His fiancée, 45-year-old Venezuelan immigrant Yasmin Suarez Reyes, was detained by ICE at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston in late July.
8 ICE agents swarmed Jasmine and detained her, didn't tell us why, and rustled her off into a car.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. Donald Trump's immigration policy is doing exactly what it promised to do. Remember the campaign rallies where they chanted mass deportation now and held up signs handed out by the campaign? It's hard to feel sympathy. I still do, but it takes some effort for those who ignored all of the warning signs, voted for Trump, and then claimed to be shocked that his administration is doing exactly what it said it would do. What makes this so much worse is that we now have implementing this policy a secret police force funded to an absurd degree, I'm talking about ICE, with a culture that drips with racism and violence. A recent ACLU lawsuit included multiple audio and video recordings of agents using racial slurs.
Newly released video and texts appear to show ICE agents using racial slurs against Latinos. The material included in ACLU court filings appears to show ICE agents using the slurs during operations in Los Angeles last summer.
As for ICE's brutality, it's become part of their culture. We've all seen that in how they behaved in Minneapolis and elsewhere, but violence is also part of their everyday language.
One of these racial slurs, which we're not going to repeat here on camera, of course, is meant to convey the sound that a body makes when it's struck by a baton or a flashlight.
My guest today is Kris Goldsmith, an Army combat vet and the founder of Veterans Fighting Fascism. Kris has made it his life's work to track and hold accountable the violent extremists in our midst. Now, some of those extremists are getting paid as agents of the federal government. Here's our conversation. Kris, welcome back to the show. It should come as absolutely no surprise that we are now seeing evidence, some of it recorded, quite a bit of testimony from ICE agents describing their victims with racial slurs.
Yeah, the ACLU has obtained some of this video footage from lawsuits that they're engaged in against ICE. And I think that people should go to the New York Times article and search elsewhere online to see this with their own eyes and to hear it with their own ears. To watch a group of armed men rolling around in the back of a van, you know, looking like they're kitted out like some special forces Hollywood movie, not even like real soldiers, right? Kitted out like they're in a war zone, using racial slurs to describe the people that they are going to go and detain. Now, that is something that unfortunately, and I admit that I engaged in this when I was, in the Army, in Iraq, in 2004 training, and then 2005 in Iraq. Those were slurs that were commonplace. But I look at that part of my life with a lot of regret. And thankfully, soon after that period, the Army made great efforts to kind of purge that of the consciousness of troops. There is some value in dehumanizing your enemy. That is how you are an effective infantryman, for example. The goal of an infantryman isn't to stand on the corner with a gun. It's to close with and destroy the enemy. That's a nice way of saying killing people, right? And it requires you to be a war fighter, to be a trigger puller. It requires you to be able to dehumanize someone, right? But we are not at war here in our country. There is absolutely no world in which civil law enforcement needs to be motivated by dehumanization in this way. And it goes to say, like, the people who are joining ICE today are doing it for very specific reasons. They are seeing these videos and they're looking at it and thinking like that looks like a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
So I think that we should really start looking at ICE as a criminal hate group. Like that is the way that they are operating.
Hey, it's Ken with a quick break to tell you about a new short documentary, Safe Ground, which follows American military veteran Ryan Hendrickson, who I recently interviewed on this show as he leads a mine-clearing team in Ukraine. It's a riveting account of what these crews go through to clear minefields and unexploded ordnance, saving the lives of ordinary Ukrainians and giving them a chance at a normal life. The footage and storytelling are extraordinary. You can watch the film for free on MeidasTouch's partner channel, Valor Media Network. The link is below. Here's a preview of Safe Ground.
It only takes one mistake. You will get yourself or somebody else injured or killed. I know God has a plan for everybody's life, and I do know that you're not going to die before it's your time.
I know what these devices can do to you because I stepped on an IED in Afghanistan.
God doesn't waste pain. Use that pain and that experience to go help other people. Let's go! Civilian casualties from this war are high.
Russian drones attacked this place.
I got a solid hit. Something's here. We have to understand the dangers, and we have to understand what we're up against. Line!
I'm really glad you made the comparison to the military, because I remember that too, with some shame. I remember it especially on deployments to the Middle East, the overt racism that I observed, and some people never shared it myself, but the casual use of slurs to, as you said, dehumanize the enemy, never justified, but understandable in a context where the enemy is trying to kill you. In many cases, understandable in a wartime context, totally not understandable on the streets of America, unless you walk back the rhetorical links of the chain, unless you realize that Donald Trump has been talking about an invasion for years, unless you look at the intentional militarization of our police forces, which we always talk about in terms of equipment. We always talk about the small town that got up-armored Humvee or an MRAP, one of these super armored infantry carrying vehicles for a peaceful town on a lazy river in rural Ohio. We have intentionally militarized our police in terms of look and equipment, but can you talk about the mindset that goes with that when suddenly you're doing raids kitted out in camo in the middle of a town, kitted out in desert camo with night vision and all the accoutrements to make you feel like a SEAL Team 6 member. And it changes the way you think. It doesn't just change the way you hop out of that vehicle. It changes your mindset.
Yeah. I grew up on Long Island, in the shadow of 9/11. And in a lot of ways, this is a very firefighter and cop forward community. Pete King was my representative for a long time, who was one of those Rudy Giuliani, everything's related to 9/11, right? After my experience in Iraq and recognizing the dehumanization that I had internalized of the Iraqi people and people from the Middle East more broadly, I started to come home and look at my friends who became cops in the NYPD and the way that they viewed the people that they were policing. And I am of the belief that people should not be allowed to police other people's neighborhoods, because even the distance of 15, 20 miles from Long Island to New York City, from Long Island to Queens or Brooklyn, the the way that a lot of NYPD officers that I grew up with have started to view the people that they're policing is totally disconnected. Like, they don't see them as Americans, as New Yorkers, as fellow human beings. And this term dehumanization, like, it feels academic, right? But people need to really think about the way that people act when they have removed the mutual understanding between themselves and someone who they have authority over, that they have power over, that they can use violence against. And the power dynamic there is significant. And the way that the mindset of someone who's dehumanized other people, like a neighborhood that is just outside their own neighborhood's borders, can be profoundly dangerous. We see, cops more willing to pull triggers against people that they don't recognize as part of their own community. And we have had ICE, with these surges. These surges are from people who are from outside those communities. The surge into Los Angeles, the surge into Chicago, the surge, into New York. It's people from around the country who are looking at these parts of America as not their America, which is another thing that rhetorically Donald Trump does. And, he informs his policy that way. He's taking, congressionally allocated money for like emergencies and stripping blue states of them because he doesn't see New Yorkers as Americans anymore.
That was an excerpt of my conversation with Kris Goldsmith. For the full interview, check out my Substack. The link is below. Thanks.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.